musicians poised to move.
Okay, good, here we are. From the top.
The European Union Baroque Orchestra, EUBO, based in the UK, is rehearsing for a final series of concerts this spring called Betrayal and Betrothal. The next time it performs, it will have relocated to Belgium and be closed to British musicians. It's facing a fundamental change of identity.
The clue is in the name. We're the European Union Baroque Orchestra. We are co-funded by the European Union. We're a cultural ambassador for the European Union. So it made absolutely no sense whatsoever to try to run a European Union entity from outside of the EU.
The orchestra has been based in the UK since its inception in 1985. This year, it has musicians from a dozen different countries. Ironically, this is the first time that doesn't include a British player. Now there'll be no chance of another.
I'm afraid as soon as the vote was known last year, it was a case of when rather than if we should move.
Exactly, and then suddenly that bar again.
Bojan Cicic first played for EUBO at the turn of this century. 17 years on, he's now the concert master for the orchestra.
The political climate is not something that we really belong to. Sadly, we're affected by it, but I think we're on the losing side in this matter.
Isabel Franenberg is a viola player who grew up in Holland. Both her parents are touring musicians, and from the age of just 2 weeks old, she's been used to hassle-free travel in the EU.
Are we still going to be able to travel around? I've traveled to Russia and to Croatia when it was not part of the EU. And it took, I think, about 6 hours to get an orchestra. It was 100 people, but an orchestra through maybe 2 meters from one side of the border to the other. You wouldn't be able to even play a concert on the same day as traveling. Time is money.
If you're coming from Turkey or from Russia, you have to pay £87 to get into this country to do a gig at the moment. That's a lot of money. If that was to extend, if that was going to be following across the rest of Europe, then people will just never do it. They won't be able to afford to work in France one day, work in England the next, work in Germany the day after. It's just not possible.
Mark Pemberton represents around 150 orchestras, of which 65 are professional and rely on touring revenues.
Ultimately then, we become more expensive to the European promoters. So we would then be saying to the promoter, could you pay us a bit more money because we now have additional costs? And the promoter will say, well, why should I do that? If UK is going to become more problematic for me to book in a British orchestra, I'll get a French orchestra or an Italian orchestra or a German orchestra because I don't have any impediments and additional costs for them to perform at my festival.
Another reason there might be extra costs is if musicians are required to purchase passports for their instruments, known as carnets.
It would just add to the pain of putting on a tour if we also have to buy those carnets for simply crossing over the channel and doing gigs abroad.
EUBO's musical cousin, the EU Youth Orchestra, will also have to relocate. It selects 120 young musicians each year to join it, chosen from the 28, soon to be 27, member states.
It's great for us that we have these UK players, and it's going to be a great sadness to lose them. The level of music education in this country, I think, is really an extraordinary thing in the UK. So they don't just bring great musicianship, they often actually bring a very broad cultural experience.
But he insists the music will go on.
There are some great music centres throughout Europe, and that's where we're looking at the moment.
Good. Do it for the last time. Do it for the last time.
But it won't mean the end of UK gigs altogether.
Is the EUIO going to stop coming to the BBC Proms? Is the EUIO going to stop coming to the Edinburgh Festival? I don't think so. Those are great landmark festivals within the world. But for something else, if there's another offer, you have to balance the offer and you have to see. And I guess in that sense, I would say that I think that the UK is making itself slightly less competitive as a performance place.
It will be 2 years before the European Union Baroque Orchestra plays again, as it takes time to move and re-establish itself in its new home. Founding member Paul has decided he won't be going with it.
I've been there since the beginning. It was my idea back in 1984, and it's been my life ever since. So it will be a sad moment.
You must feel quite emotional about that.
We are. We're a very small organisation. We get very close bonds, close relationships and so on. And it will be, yes, it's an emotional time and a difficult time.